Uh, well, on Wednesday, I picked up my kids from school with my wife, Tabitha, and I took them to the airport in Grand Rapids, and they went to Florida, so that's where they are right now. Um, they're having a good time. But on that Wednesday, uh, my youngest daughter, Hazel, who is probably 8 years old, I don't remember, but something like that. She's in second grade, and she came out with something on her forehead, some little gray spot on her forehead, and uh, and then all the kids in her class had the same thing, and I knew what it was immediately because it was Ash Wednesday, not just normal Wednesday, but Ash Wednesday, and her teacher and her classmates did something special to talk about Ash Wednesday, which is the beginning of this season of Lent. As you know, we've been preaching during the season of Epiphany lately, and now we've moved to the season of Lent as we walk, journey toward the cross. And this is the first Sunday of Lent, following Ash Wednesday. And usually the lectionaries usually designate the story of the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness as the text for the first Sunday of Lent. But I'm going to do something a little different today, and we're going to be in Matthew chapter 16, which is the text where Jesus says to take up our cross and to follow him. So, a few summers ago, one of my sons named Simeon, middle child. Simeon's 10 years old. And the oldest one is Josiah. He's 11 years old right now. And I coach with Doyle, Simeon's and Josiah's baseball team. Now, Simeon always plays up. He's a year younger than Josiah, but he always plays up with the older kids to be on the same team as Josiah. So it's kind of a ripoff for him, but it makes him better, And I think probably the first year they were in live pitch baseball, where it's not coach pitch anymore. And Simeon started off the season just like super consistently striking out every single time. And it was frustrating for him. It was such a struggle. It was a struggle for me as his dad, as his coach. Like, what do we need to do to get him? Because I've seen him hit the ball, but what do we need to do? And then one time he got hit by a pitch in the ribs, and so he has this psychological fear that he's dealing with when he's in the batter's box, and his swing just looks like a golf swing or something every time. It just looks horrible, and we try to find every way to fix his swing. The first half of the season he didn't get a hit. Maybe he got a walk one time and got on base, but it was a struggle. One Saturday, we went out as a family, and I took all of us. Tabitha was there, Hazel was there, and the two boys, and we got as many baseballs as we had in the house, which was probably like 7. We went to one of the baseball fields around here, and I said, "We're not leaving here until you know how to hit the ball." And he didn't like that. Simeon, it was a struggle for him. I tell this sermon while he's not here, so he doesn't get annoyed. But he was frustrated. He was struggling. He was crying because I was making him stand in that batter's box and keep swinging the bat until he hits the ball, giving him pointers along the way, trying to be kind of a good coach and a good dad. But at the same time, I'm not letting him back off of it. We're here to learn how to do this. We're here to practice hitting until you know how to do it. And we spent, I don't know how long we were at that park, but one of those pitches, he made contact and he hit it. And then he did it again. And then another one. And after a while, he started getting a feel for what this is like. And it wasn't a chore and it wasn't a burden. It was something that he liked. He was happy for it. And he would hit it harder and farther. And it started to become something he enjoyed. He knew how to do it. It was something that he loved now. And now, a couple years later, Simeon can hit the ball, and he loves playing baseball, loves going to practice. I mean, they're always requesting me, Dad, can you come outside and play catch? Can you take us to the park and throw batting practice to us or whatever? Like, they want me to do that. They're asking me for that. Where did that come from? And what would it have become if we hadn't practiced? If Simeon hadn't practiced? Those are two different diverging paths that he could have taken. But he chose the path of practice, and I was there to help him. And because of that, he fell in love with the game, and baseball's not a burden to him anymore. It's something that he loves to do. Well, in Matthew chapter 16, the text we read today in verse 24, Jesus says to his disciples, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Okay, the following part, we all are like, yeah, I want to follow Jesus. Let's do that. But the take up the cross part, the deny myself part, nobody is signing up for that right away in life. That's not something that comes natural to us. It's not something we want to do immediately. It's like Simeon standing in the batter's box on that day at that practice baseball field, not wanting to be there, but not knowing what the future had in store for him if he would be. What does it mean then to take up our cross? What does it mean to deny ourselves? I was reading an article this week by a scholar named Diana Butler Bass, and she had an article called "Practice the Cross." And in it she says, well, I got this phrase because there's this poet named Wendell Berry, and he had this cool poem, and the last line of his poem, it said, "Practice resurrection." And that's a line that Eugene Peterson grabbed onto, and he wrote a book about practicing resurrection. And but Diana, she said, so we have this phrase, this famous phrase, "practice resurrection." I wonder what it means to practice the cross. And that's what she explores in this article. What does it mean to practice the cross? And that's what I want to kind of explore with us today as well. What does it mean to practice the cross? What does it mean to take up our cross and follow Jesus? Jesus, I mean, you can spend 16 hours talking about this. Everything in Jesus' life, every page in these Gospels is about what it looks like and what it means to take up our cross, to practice the cross. But one of the clearest examples and clearest teachings of Jesus is in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6 begins with Jesus saying, "Beware of practicing. Beware of practicing your righteousness before men to be noticed by them. Otherwise you have no reward with your Father in heaven." So Jesus is saying there's two choices. There's going to be a practice of some sort. You can practice your righteousness in front of people, which means I'm practicing glorifying myself, being cool, impressing people, wanting people to think I'm awesome. Or you can practice the cross. So the cross has something to do with the opposite of practicing your righteousness before others. And then he goes into this large speech in Matthew chapter 6. It's about giving, verse 2, and about praying, verse 5, and about fasting, verse 16. That's the outline of Jesus' sermon here. You want to know what, the bullet points of practicing the cross are about praying, about giving, and about fasting. And we can extrapolate from there a bunch of other stuff too. Fasting from food, whatever, but there are other things that we can fast from as well. Giving to the poor, yes, that's what Jesus is talking about, but what about what Charles was talking about today? Giving of our time, equally important. Relationships, equally important. So it's not just about finding a poor person and giving them. It's not just about not eating something. It's not just about making sure I say words to God every day. It's about something much larger. But Jesus is saying there's more than one way to do that stuff. Let's take those literally. The the almsgiving to the poor, the prayer, and the fasting. He says there's the people that practice righteousness before men have a way of giving to the poor. And you're going to know about it. You know when they give, because they'll tell you. And they want everyone to know, and they want to make a big deal of it. Same thing with prayer. You don't need to wonder when these guys are praying, because they'll stand on the street corner and announce it to you, let you know that they're praying. Same thing with fasting. They're going to make themselves look so horrible and like it's such a difficult task, and you'll notice it when they walk up to you. Oh, you're fasting, because you wanted me to know that about you. Jesus says those are the people who do that for a reward. And the difference between practicing righteousness before men, practicing the cross, is the difference between heart and reward. Reward over here. Hey, other people think you're awesome. They'll say, oh, what a spiritual person this person is. And that's all you get. You get the accolades from other people. You get the praise from other people. That's your reward. Jesus says, but there's a different reward for people who practice the cross, doing these same things, praying, fasting, giving. We're all going to be doing that. But the difference is the heart. And the difference is the reward that you get out of it. Think about why Jesus took up his cross. I'm not talking about like the theological, like what is the reason why Jesus went to the cross and died, and atonement theory and stuff like that. I'm asking you about Jesus himself, the man. Why did he choose to go to the cross and die? What was he doing? I'll tell you one thing. It was not because of how he felt in the moment about himself. He didn't do it based upon a feeling that he was feeling in the moment. No one would ever choose the cross, ever, if they base their decisions in life on self-centered feelings in the moment, because it doesn't feel good. It's horrible. Horrible. You don't choose that for yourself. I tell my kids all the time, they use these phrases like, if I ask them, like, do you have a test coming up that you need to study for? And they'll say something like, I feel like it's on Thursday. I feel like my test's on Thursday. What does that mean? Why does it matter what you feel like? That doesn't have any bearing on when your test actually is. But that's a phrase that people use, and it's not just my kids' generation. It's been going on since whatever, the 60s, the 1920s, the 1700s. I don't know when people started talking about that. But a lot of times we'll use a phrase like, I feel like. You ever notice that? I feel like this, when what we're really trying to say is, I think about something. I think this is true or right. So this feelings thing is a big deal in our culture. And Jesus, I don't want to make fun of feelings or bash feelings, because feelings are important. In fact, the writer of Hebrews says feeling is part of the motivation for Jesus going to the cross, doesn't he? It's for the joy set before him. He endured the cross. So feelings are bad. Feelings are a central part of our faith, of our practice of Christianity. But selfish feelings in the moment, self-centered feelings that come to us in the moment, should have no bearing on how we make decisions in life. Godly feelings with a different motive that is not self-centered but others-focused is a perfectly good reason to incorporate feelings into our decisions. Jesus went to the cross because of a selfless mindset, a selfless giving, and a selfless feeling of compassion for you, for me. He wanted to know us. He wanted to have a relationship with us. He wants us to know the Father and for us to be known by the Father. This is why Jesus goes to the cross. This is why he takes up the cross. Otherwise, he would have never chosen it. And none of us will ever choose it either. Jesus says part of taking up your cross is about giving to the poor. Who wants to give to the poor? Who wants to have less money? Who wants in 5 minutes to say, well, now I have less money than I did 5 minutes ago? Nobody wants that. It's not natural. if you're making a decision that is self-centered based on your feelings, I want to have more money right now than less. I'm not going to give money to someone else. Praying, giving of your time, fasting, all these things. Fasting and praying obviously go together in the Hebrew Bible. Isaiah 58. In Isaiah 58, God is saying, like, well, the real fast, if you want to practice real fasting, is to give to the poor. Take what you would have eaten that day and give it to someone else. So all these go together. This giving to the poor, this fasting, this praying, they're sacrificial in nature. They're relational in nature. They're based, yes, on an emotion, but not a self-centered one that is focused on others. But we don't choose that stuff naturally. It takes practice. One of my biggest regrets in life is that I see in a concert or on TV people playing musical instruments, especially piano. I really love piano. It's awesome. But anything, guitar, whatever. Piano hurts the most. See people play the piano, and it's not just like mechanical playing, like, look at me, I memorize these notes. They're musicians. They know how to play this music. The music lives in them. It's alive in them. I've told you a couple of stories before about my piano lesson days and piano camp and all that stuff and things that we did there. But those years of piano lessons didn't last very long. I think I did it 2 years only. 2 years. Because I was like Simeon and didn't want to be doing that anymore. I didn't like how it felt. I didn't like it, how it took up my time. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And so I quit. And now today, I don't know how to play piano very well. I know how to, like, click around on a few keys. That's it. But I'm not a musician. I don't know how to play. Listen to this story that Diana Butler Bass says. She was giving a lecture one day, and some woman stood up right in the middle of her talking, and there was this epiphany. She was like, I get it. I get what you're talking about. The woman said, I get it. When I was little, my mother made me practice the piano. It started to get interesting, and I practiced eventually without her telling me. I wanted to learn more, and I looked forward to lessons and asked for more challenging pieces, and then I began to write my own music. I went from piano being my mother's idea to being a student, and then I learned how to play the piano, and then I became a musician. This is what discipleship is about. It starts with someone telling us, here's a good thing that you should do. Pray. Give to the poor. Fast. Give of your time, your energy, your efforts to other people. A million different things. Here are some things. It starts with God telling us how to do that, like a parent. It starts with Jesus telling us. And in our little hearts, we're going to say, I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel good. That's annoying. I don't want to practice piano. But if you do it, eventually, it will become more, like this woman says, more than someone else's idea. If we practice infrequently, it will always be someone else's idea. If we do these things rarely, we will never graduate past the concept of, this is God telling me what to do. This is someone else's idea imposed on me because they say I'm supposed to do it. Like a parent making their kid practice piano lessons. But this woman says now she gets it. At some point, it went from someone making her do piano lessons to her starting to be interested in them. And then starting to practice it and do it without anyone telling her. And then wanting, desiring, longing to learn more, seeking wisdom in this, seeking proficiency in this. She looks forward to the lessons. See, now that sounds like Simeon playing baseball. Looks forward to the lessons and the practice and the more challenging pieces. It's not just about, oh, I did my duty. I practiced, 20 minutes or 45 minutes and did my scales and arpeggios and whatever else you do in piano lessons. It's like, I look forward to be challenged. I want to grow. I want to get better. I love this. And then I began to write my own music, she says. I went from piano being my mother's idea to being a student. And then I learned how to play the piano and became a musician. Diana says that's what practice is. The pathway from being someone else's idea of what is good for us to developing a skill that we enjoy. We become good at something, but it doesn't stop there. If you continue to practice, you become different. You become different by practicing the cross, by laying down yourself, by denying myself, and learning to give to others with compassion, with joy, because I actually want to. It says, you become different. Practice isn't just something we do. Practice is something that changes who we are. It changed Simeon that day on the baseball field. He woke up that day not wanting to practice, not wanting to do that stuff, not wanting to play baseball. And thank goodness that he wasn't like me, where he gave up and quit something like piano. But he stood in there. I stood there as a dad on that field, and I knew what it was like to quit something before you know the joy of it. And that's a huge regret. I didn't want him to experience that. And so we pushed through. God knows the joy of taking up your cross and following him. And it sounds so counterintuitive. It sounds so ridiculous to the selfish heart. Who would ever want to follow God and do like this and give up stuff for my life and become less of who I am? But Jesus says, it's when you lose your life that you gain it. It's when you give up things that you actually see what is the fullness of life. That's what practicing the cross is about. And it takes time. It does. We're all at different stages. And maybe we're at the beginning. Maybe we're somewhere in the middle. But eventually, when we do it long enough, it becomes who we actually are. And we become the musicians. We become the practitioners of the cross. We become like Jesus. And that's the goal. I'll finish with a couple more paragraphs from Diana, and then we'll stand and sing. She says, Lent is a bridge, a season of practice. So give and pray and fast and sing and forgive and do justice and love your enemies and turn the other cheek. Keep Sabbath and offer hospitality and serve the poor and care for the planet. The more we practice our faith, the more we become the person that God created us to be. Generous, wise, grounded in what is good and beautiful and just. A meaningful life for the sake of the world. Faith deepens. We understand more. We become givers and prayers and those content with simplicity, makers of music, merciful, agents of justice, able to embrace all people, rested, hospitable, servants, stewards of the good earth, our beautiful home. By practicing our faith, we actually become all the things that we promised to be in our baptism vows. We become citizens of the kingdom of God, the radical followers who embody the beloved community that Jesus proclaimed. That is the treasure in heaven. These are the things that last, right here. Ash Wednesday and Lent, they remind us, all of us, that we will die. We will die. How will we be remembered? Will we be remembered for what? Not for what we had, not even for what we did, but for who we were, for our characters in our hearts. May we live out the cross and practice it this Lenten season. Let's stand and sing.